Hey there. Welcome to the Eurostep Podcast Network post-game podcast. I'm live. Normally I'd say cut it, get our group of GSPN interns to take care of this, but it is just me and winning sixes, Jordan Treske. I am Ty Windisch, recording live on YouTube and directly after the Bucks held on another very, very close game against the Miami Heat in Miami to lock up the 1 seed in the East in the in-season tournament. We've got a game to talk about, trends we've seen, the in-season tournament. We'll do stocks for this game later. It's a really exciting pod, I think, Jordan. But first, of course, how's it going?
Going well. It's going well. It always goes well after the Bucks win. And they won Group B, which I presume was named after the Bucks, Group Bucks. So that's where my mood is at right now.
Nice. Love that. Yeah, I think it was quite the game to watch. It was I won't say it was same old Bucks, because they did start out quite a bit better. The first half of the first quarter was awesome. It was a very hot start from Milwaukee, which was nice to see. And then things derailed a little bit from there. Some of the defensive lapses that, the Bucks have kind of it's been part of their game, unfortunately, for a lot of this season. Even though, I've shared the numbers before and I'll pull it up later when the stats are updated, but they've been actually just a middling defense since November 3rd, which was when they started dropping as their main scheme. They haven't been 25th. They've been, I think, 16th going into this game. We'll see. I would guess they may drop a little bit after this game, but, they haven't been as horrible as they look. But I do think the lows are extremely low for this defense, and they were again in this game. Guys just losing their assignment. Dame, Beasley just getting dusted. Khris Middleton getting dusted a lot. Bobby Portis with some rough moments against Jaime Jaquez, who is just a hell of a player. I mean, got to give him some credit too. But the defense, I think, is the negative side of this game. Would you rather start there or with the positive, which is, this Bucks team looks like an absolute demon in crunch time when they have their best 3 or 4 players healthy?
Let's go positive, because I think it tonight really felt like, I know we're coming off of the Portland game where they completed the biggest comeback in the NBA this year, and it's all this goodwill of like, okay, this team knows how to finish these games. They don't necessarily know how to lead or overwhelm teams quarters 1 through 3. But I felt like tonight, especially against, a Heat team that did not have Jimmy Butler. They did not have, who was another big player that they did not have today?
Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero, of course, yes.
Yeah, and Haywood Highsmith, for the Haywood Highsmith enjoyers out there, of which I am one, a good big wing defender. Anyway.
Yeah, no disrespect to Haywood or Hardwood. Sorry.
The only disrespect to Hardwood was Miami's court. I don't know if you heard that little drum roll.
That was awful. I cannot. I don't want to get distracted, but it was awful. But yes, the Heat didn't have major pieces. It still didn't matter because this team can go on. It's Eric Spoelstra. We know what the Heat can do, even when they are shorthanded. And I still felt like, yes, the defense has its problems, as we'll get into, but offensively, especially just having Khris out there and not having him out there for the last 6 quarters before tonight, you just see this, how it works and how things are still coming together, but what's still there right now of these tempos of, yes, you can go to Dame, he can hit threes as he did tonight. You can have Giannis drive to the rack, play off his the attention that he gives, and still pick out shooters. Brook came up big again too, just because he's a big body and just throw it high and he'll dunk it. If there's just a way that this works, and not to shortchange Malik Beasley, who again had a very solid game, just hitting threes and just playing admirable defense, even if it's not a perfect game defensively. I just think that 5-man unit right there, as much as it's a saloon door defensively sometimes, they could get buckets. It doesn't matter who it is. Like, they just have this balance about it that really just didn't exist for the Bucks largely ever. Even in that the championship run, we talk about those great moments, but we certainly know when the the well got dry, and it was basically like, hey, Khris, let's start kind of like, doing what you do best, mid range, or finding Giannis and picking out situations. I just thought the balance that we saw offensively, especially down the stretch, really obviously lifted the Bucks to win the group, beat the Heat, and it just kind of has extended this team's clutch time ability of just, we know the situation, and it still doesn't matter because we can still score relentlessly, and it will carry us to a victory.
You know what's crazy? This didn't feel like a great Dame game to me. I know you're drinking a water for the pod listeners, but you can just nod yes or no. Did it feel like a great Dame game to you? Not bad by any means, but like I didn't come away like, Dame like really took. I mean, I know he's always great late, but then you look at the line and it's 32 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, just 1 turnover, 50, 44, 100 shooting splits for Dame. So maybe I'm just a hater. I don't know. Maybe I was just oblivious.
I don't think you're saying anything that's really off base, because we're used to this with Giannis. The standard is so high with him, and you just like, you look at the Bucks, or 32, 10 and 5 or whatever, and it doesn't feel like that. It can kind of disguise itself in that way. And I thought, to answer your question, I thought Dame had a really good game, but it's not one of those overwhelming, like, this guy is just pouring it on and the Heat had no answer for him. He did have to work for it a little bit and miss shots. Obviously, it wasn't a perfect shooting game, but I felt like what we've tried to see from Dame more consistently, certainly seeing the 3-ball hit more often is going to help. But I thought that when, even in the face of pressure, he really just balanced out the offense in ways that we have seen this Bucks team, or iterations of this Bucks teams, collapse under pressure. And that was refreshing to see not that happen, where it's just like, you're looking for offense and then you just don't have the ball at all, where Dame is very good with the ball.
I think it's his control. I mean, the shot making, of course, and the passing, but like the Bucks have just never had a player who really, I mean, this is going to sound like, I think, worse than it is, and Giannis is close, but like a true lead ball handler, certainly not one to pair with Giannis, where you're like, if he's got to navigate through a double team or a bunch of help, he's got it. Like, he's good. Like, he's not just going to like kind of flail and fumble the ball away or make a horrible pass. Obviously, he's had turnovers. He's made some bad passes, but in those big moments, every time he has the ball, like there was a possession late in this game when I think Caleb Martin was pressuring Khris, or maybe Josh Richardson, as he came up the floor because they were face guarding Dame on the inbounds. And I was like, Khris, just get it across half court and get it to Dame, please. And that's exactly what he did. He was like, all right, I'm just going to get right here. I'm going to stop. Dame, come take this ball and then do what you do. We can talk about ways that, the Giannis and Dame partnership and Dame on the Bucks is still coming along. It has felt to me, though, over this last week and change, I think they've simplified things a lot. I do. It does feel more like, okay, Khris is playing a bit more minutes now. We don't have to funnel every other possession to him when he's on the court to start games, which is what I thought they were doing when Khris was at like 20 minutes. It felt like egregiously, for a reason, they were like, okay, Khris, get your shots in. Like, you're not going to get to play a bunch. Now it's like, all right, Dame, you just have the ball. Like, just go do stuff, Dame. And I feel like those moments where it's like, Giannis, they haven't got the ball to Dame in a really long time. Like, where is he? I have not felt as many of those lately. Like, when he's out there, it kind of feels like they're just like, you're the point guard. Just go do whatever you want to do. And he is, of course, able to strike a really good balance doing that. And it's been refreshing. Like, I think offensively, outside of just missing really good looks, which was like, I know the story of the Boston game and some of the Wizards stuff, their flow has felt a lot better, which is why I think they're, 4-1 in these last 5 games, despite, not really playing great for a lot, especially on the defensive end in them.
Yes, I do think there is the structure, or whatever, the foundation, that's probably a better way of saying it. The foundation is there, and I do think that they're building on something of just having your best players, your starting lineup out there for large stretches. It works. We saw the start of this game too. Like it looked pretty good. And obviously it kind of went awry as the first quarter went along, but I like what we've seen from Giannis, and it doesn't feel like deferring. It does feel like I know who is in, or who gives us the best opportunity to close out games, to come back in games, as we saw last time out. Dame just has this power and control, as you mentioned, of controlling the tempo. Usually, even if he's going to miss a shot, it's going to be the best opportunity or best read in a certain play. And again, this Heat team, like I know it was shorthanded, and we're going to say all the caveats in the world and all that stuff, but it still matters to see this team click. And it really, like, based on where the Bucks are at right now and the fact that there have been so many changes, and we will labor that over or hit that point to death over the course of the season. But it's still like we're in the fact finding stage still of like how things work. How does it work when it's tilted towards this way, when the offense runs through Dame? What does it look like when you have all three of Giannis, Khris, and Dame on the floor, whether that's crunch time or just lineups or, regular playing time, non-clutch time. I do think tonight was probably the best instance of it not just being Giannis, Dame playing off of each other. I felt like it really was the entire, that closing lineup. And really, it jump started with this coming out of the timeouts. I think so. My memory's already hazy with just how crazy this game ended. But it was the Brook getting the rebound and then waiting that beat to bounce pass it to Dame, to basically pass it into him so he could get even more open. He hits it like kind of like on the move, and it was just a swish. Like it really jump started this team from being down by 3. It tied the game, I want to say like 116 or something like that. And when that shot went in, it was like, okay, I kind of understand where this is going to be going, because we've seen the story. As much as the Bucks have many faults, we've seen them rise above, the obstacles and the hole that they have repeatedly dug themselves in time and time again to start the year. But when it hits a certain time of game, it's just like, okay, this is a lot different. See the Bucks like this than how it has been the last few years.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Brook a lot more. I think people in the Discord, people in the YouTube chat have already said, you got to talk about Brook. We will. I'm excited to. I think this is the most fully involved, and I've been looking. The assist numbers still, I think, maybe slightly lower than like his first Bucks year, but at least in quite some time, the most involved we've seen Brook in the offense, and I think that's been really good for him and for the Bucks. But let's not do the thing I always do, where it's like, and I did it. I was talking about like defense early on, like defensive issues. We'll get there. Talk about Giannis, the big fellow, who before I even get to his stats, which are incredible, and all the great plays, and even though he got a little jumper happy, he still maintained just obscene efficiency. I mean, nearly 70% from the field, made one of his 2 threes, 10 of 13 from free throw as well. So a really great game for Giannis, who had 33 points. The screens he was setting in this game, like in the first quarter, I was like not floored, but it was one of those like the eyebrows raise a lot. It's like big. I just did that way too much. That's very gifable. But but he was really setting great screens, and it felt to me too like just generally offensively early, they kind of looked like the Bucks of the preseason, which I wonder is that getting back to an offensive principle that they had left, like a lot of pass back out, DHOs and screens around the perimeter, really looking for advantages. And they got off to a great start. Like it was really, I guess to borrow a Marcus Johnsonism, like chop wood, carry water kind of execution offensively. And it starts with those screens that were getting Bees and Khris and Dame a lot of space. That was really fun to see. I hope someone asked Giannis about it after the game. More importantly, I hope we see that more going forward, because I think Dame was almost surprised a couple times how much space he had on those Giannis Dame pick and rolls after earlier. They pretty much just let teams switch and then carried on.
Yeah, I think we underestimate just like, we always talk about like the reinvention of like Brook Lopez and just like going from this, dinosaur kind of player that doesn't really exist in modern NBA to transferring himself to a 3-and-D center that can hold himself as like the preeminent drop defender, not named Rudy Gobert. And then now it's like his offense is so tied to, it's not exclusively tied to Dame, but just having a big body and just setting screens, making sure that you're the guy that's going to have the ball in his hands, as much as Giannis, or if not more, especially down the stretch. Just getting him looks, letting him operate the offense with maximum vision, with plenty of room to operate. And that, like, it's not, I think I over or underestimated just how quickly, like, that combination would just really jumpstart. We talk about the Giannis Dame pick and roll and stuff like that, but it always equally applied to Brook because of, he obviously can shoot it better. He can step back to three. And for my money, like, he's looked really athletic in terms of just like putting the ball on the floor and twisting his weird body through the defense and getting like and ones and finishing at the cup and stuff like that. Like, he really has. Did
you hear Marcus's note on that the other day?
He said something, and I'm forgetting what it is.
I remember it. It was really interesting, actually. So I want to and I'm glad you brought this up specifically. I want to give Bucks assistant coach Vin Baker a big shout out for being a sneakily elite big man developmental coach. I remember there was some talk about like, when Christian Wood went to the Lakers this year, I remember it was like, people clowned him for saying he had a relationship with Darvin Ham because he didn't play many games for the Bucks, but he was on the team all year. Or most of the year, he just played with the herd. Vin Baker was down there working with him. Christian Wood got a lot better that year. And Marcus said Vin Baker has been working with Brook on those drives. And we've seen a lot more of those, and they've looked a lot better this year. They're very weird, glacial, very slow. My favorite part about him is he does the dribble move before at such a slow speed. I have to imagine it's just like part of his routine. No one ever, he just reaches out the ball and will bop it on someone. And then and no one can do anything about it. They've been really effective. But apparently that was an area of focus for him and Vin Baker. Marcus was like, I'm kind of surprised to see the old dog continue to learn new tricks. But it's been really, really useful for the Bucks. And it's really good, okay, not all the starters are out there. Dame is face guarded or whoever. The possession sucks. Brook, do you want to just take 3 of the slowest steps ever and put up a really good shot? And he's been able to do that. So I found that really interesting. Shout out to Vin Baker and the Bucks coaching staff for, not just being like, okay, Brook, here's your rolls, here's your threes, and that's it.
Yeah, I really have been impressed with the way that Brook has been utilized offensively. And it, again, how we talked about him as maybe a low post kind of outlet for the Bucks under Bud. Now it's okay, set screens and you have a lane to yourself, whether you can dish it out or you can finish it at home. And either way, he's making the right move more than not. And it's a way to extend his career. I don't know. It's just crazy that they're talking about Kyle Lowry being in his 18th NBA season and Brook is not that far behind with 16 years. So it's just crazy to see someone of his stature and how much he's changed his game to stay in the NBA and stay as well as, or as good as he is of a player in the NBA, to continue that on. And someone like Dame just kind of helps him even more. But yeah, I thought he did an excellent job. I know he tried to kind of bring together the defense in a lot of ways, as he has, through the vast majority of the season. But today, just making that dunk at the end was just it was so cathartic, him putting that home, just roaming off the baseline and just yes, just get it through. I want them to beat the Heat, and my blood was just I have to see this Heat culture and this stupid, we're the hardest working team in the
nastiest.
NBA. We get no respect, Rodney Dangerfield, Miami Heat. It's I just cannot. It's so corny. It is so unbelievably corny. Anyway, that was my.
That's a good rant. That's a good rant. I think I said to you or in our GSPN chat during the game, the Heat are the one team where it's like I don't even look at the injury report. It doesn't matter. Like they play the same game pretty much every time. I know the Bucks have had some good games against them and obviously some horrible games against them, but these regular season ones where half the team is out, it just feels like they find a way anyway. Circle back to Giannis quickly. Like, just thought there were some moments that are not optimal. I'll put it that way. Some not optimal moments for him on defense. Like, he reached once and Jaquez got him. Offensively, the jumpers, which they fell enough tonight. And I'm putting it that way on purpose because, like, everything else he does is just so important and so massive for the Bucks. This year, I've been able to really just be like, you know what? I think there's been like a couple games that were really bad decision-making wise from Giannis. Most of the time, though, it's like you want to take 4 jumpers if you're taking 16 shots and also getting fouled 7 times in the act of shooting. Okay, it's not optimal. And I think we see, like, I'll always remember it felt like game 7 of the finals. He just didn't take any. It's just like, all right, I'm just going to do what I do. Like, I think there's an awareness of him knowing when to pick the spots, but he was just so good. I mean, he was able to score a bunch over Bam Adebayo. Bam got him sometimes. That's the best ISO defender in the NBA. And Khris found that out the hard way. He got Dame a couple times. Like, Bam is incredible. Giannis is just at a level now. I think it's easily the best we've seen him play. Like, he's so controlled. It's not just the Dame space, just like the way he plays, the control he has. He's just remarkable. It was another 30, 10, and 5 game where did you see the leaderboard of Bucks to do it?
Yes, it's Giannis
164, Kareem 162.
Marcus was 3rd place, and
8,
I believe
his jersey number. Yeah, it's like, oh my god.
There's a lot. It's very front runners on the leaderboard.
But we are desensitized to it though with Giannis to a certain extent. Like, I think we do a good job talking about how great he is, especially when he does hit these milestones. You know, when he became the scoring leader in the Nets game, like, I always remember that moment. But just 33, 10, and 5 on 68% from the field, made a lot of his free throws, 2 steals, 1 block. It's just, I mean, he looks awesome. And I don't think any of us ever believed it, but this idea that, like, oh, you know, his rim numbers were down last year. He's exiting his physical prime. No. He's still pretty good, I think. More like pretty great, although still having a hard time cracking the top 17 in people's NBA or MVP leaderboards so far.
Screw him. That's what I say. I don't care about what anybody says. There's a lot of opinions out there. Not necessarily all of them are great. Anyway,
it's an understatement.
Yeah. I thought Giannis's game, I thought it was kind of like anytime they needed something, whether it was, you know, we saw the early offense and keeping pace with the Heat in the first half. Then coming out of halftime, like the shots that were coming up short from him, like whether it was mid-range, elbow, getting the post, he's really dialed in. The 3 that he took tonight, I know he took another one, but the first 3 that he took tonight, I was like, yeah, do it. Like, I normally I don't like you doing that, but like, it kind of looked good, and it felt like in, you know, 99 times out of 100, you'll be like, why are you taking that shot, especially if it's like early in the shot clock. The way that he was shooting tonight, or at least during that portion, I was like, yeah, it looks very free-flowing and very instinctive, as Marcus said in the broadcast. And then, like, you know, Dame is kind of controlling the ball, or if it was the kind of the campaign Malik Beasley, maybe Khris was in there in the fourth quarter. Basically, before Dame got back in the game, Giannis would lead the offense, but it wouldn't necessarily end. Possessions wouldn't necessarily finish with him. And I just thought, like, when he dug in defensively and he's using his long arms to pick out dribbles, push guys back a little bit, and make it not as, you know, as much of a runway for the Heat ball handlers to get down the paint. It just stifled them. And yeah, I would like to see the Bucks really dig in on that more than 8 minutes out of the game. But that problem is not really a Giannis problem. That is a Bucks problem and a perimeter problem in particular. Yeah. But it really, like, he had possessions against Bam. He had, I think, or Jaquez, maybe Lowry too, that he just kind of just eliminated, or it was Richardson. He just eliminated just the ball pressure and the dribble penetration. It was so good to see. Like, we didn't really see that level of from Giannis in that way last year, and it was a very different year. But see, just like when he digs like in like that, and you just see how long he is. It's like, how how are you going to get around that when he's really locked in and doing all that stuff? So I thought anything that the Bucks kind of needed at any moment, whether it was scoring the ball, rebounding, digging defensively, by the end of it, he just provided tonight. It was really one of his more well balanced performances of the season so far, I would say.
Yeah, there was a time where he punched out a pocket pass that was going to Bam that led to a Bucks fast break. And it's like, that's the kind of like, one thing I've noticed too on like the semi-transition that's been an issue for Milwaukee, what I look for now is Giannis on the court, and is he ahead or behind of the ball? Because if he's ahead of the ball, maybe they'll get an open three, but it's like the horrible, like, oh, they just get right to the rim again. It just goes away. His presence, it just goes away immediately. Like guys are now willing to like, oh, I'll try to just drive through Giannis to get to the paint. Because Brook's been the one amassing all the blocks, but Giannis has some nasty ones this season.
Yes.
His presence, even if he's not actively in the play necessarily, is so important for them defensively. And I think he has started to get back a little sooner. They did get beat back once on a Bees missed three by Jaquez, but it's a work in progress defensively. We already kind of covered Brook. It was funny, a Brook game where he's 0 for 4 from deep, and it was just like unanimously positive reviews. And I also thought he was so close to a bunch of those floaters and just couldn't get there. But it is just a different ball game. We talked about Giannis when he's out there defensively too. Brook just 12 points, but 5 for 10 from the field. So that means he was 5 for 6 from 2. Made both of his free throws, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 block. He's been throwing some really nice passes lately, in addition to like those drives. And it feels like he, like Giannis, I remember saying real early in the year, like the first couple games, Giannis just had to slow down on those pick and rolls. Like he was doing stuff too fast. You'll see Brook now take a beat, and I wonder if it's just the new spacing on the court, but you'll see him take a beat and like, oh, there is someone cutting to the rim right now. Or, oh, there's Dame's right there. Oh, I can make that pass. That's not hard. The one you mentioned, the offensive rebound, where it felt like it was automatic for a long time, where Brook gets that and, he's taking that slow fade away. This time he's like, oh, that's Damian Lillard over there. I'll bounce that guy the ball. That might work out. So I just think an awesome all-around year, offense, defense. He's done so much. I hope it's not wearing him out too much, but he always seems like he's able to do this stuff without a full exertion at all times out there. I'm sure it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but he's such a smart player the way he uses his body.
Yes, I would agree with that. It's just a matter of, he is up there, and that you're always, that's very present. I mean, it honestly applies to pretty much the big four of Dave, Giannis, Khris, Brook. Of we've certainly experienced it plenty with Khris of just how kind of fragile things can be. Not that they aren't right now, because he's came off a 1.5 game absence with Achilles soreness or tightness, whatever you want to call it.
Ultimately, it was called tendonitis.
Tendonitis, there we go. But yeah, those creaky moments kind of. It just feels like it's always kind of like walking on this tightrope of like, just like, oh, is that it? Is that, I don't know. But yeah, I thought, again, Brook just kind of balanced them in a lot of ways. And we didn't really see kind of the throw them of threes unless if possessions really bogged down. That's the thing about the offense. Like, we're talking about a 132-point performance, and it's like, yeah, like, you get the best out of Dame, Giannis. We haven't really touched on Khris yet, and I'm really excited to. But Malik, again, really hit from 3. And then getting into it, the entire starting lineup is in double figures. The other, the highest scorer after that is Pat, who only played half the game with 7 points. And it's like they can win that way. It's not an ideal way because we've seen this bench really lift them up, but when you're playing against a team with, higher stakes, a team that you're probably don't want to see in the playoffs, but are certainly playoff bound, it is good to see the best players hit that next gear, even when, some other players are lagging behind, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's fitting we're talking about like the whole starting five first, because this was a game where they carried, as you laid out. Also, I think, there's a lot of discourse about if Malik Beasley should still be starting, and we'll get to him after Khris, I think, fittingly. No one has made a good enough case, I think, to unseat him. I think Crowder did, but got hurt. That putting him aside,
yeah.
Crowder was awesome. I mean, but it's funny. Advanced stats lying. I know I said this to Rohan, so the listeners know already, but like he has the worst net rating swing on the team by far. They're like -10 with him on, +17 with him off. So I just guarantee there's going to be someone out there who, when he's ready to come back, goes, should they even play him? I mean, this guy was terrible. He was so good. Like, he was everything they needed on the wing. Get well soon. Marcus Johnson said he's been looking good recently, so hopefully he's able to get back without any complications. But Khris Middleton made the return, missed, as you mentioned earlier, 6 quarters with the Achilles tendonitis, so a whole round of people who dislike Khris and think the Bucks should have moved on for no gain in the short or long term by doing so. Kind of panicked, maybe over nothing. He plays 23 and a half minutes, 7 for 13 from the field, despite just 1 of 3 from deep. Made both free throws, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, no turnovers, 3 fouls, 17 total points for Khris. Game high 20 plus minus. I think that strong start, he helped buoy that a lot. And you do see when they close too, like they're not all 3 out there for a lot due to his restriction, but they're just like, they have to turn the ball over or miss good looks, basically, to not execute good offense. I mean, it's like there's just too many threats for defenses to cope with. It's very obvious. Defensively, it was a disaster. Just got beat a lot. Went for fakes and was out of position, just wasn't fast enough sometimes. You hope he can just be better than that. This is also just a quick Heat team, but, it's Caleb Martin and Jaime Jaquez. It's not like, we're talking about, I don't know, Tyrese Maxey taking him from the perimeter or something. He's got to be a little better than that.
Against Boston.
Yeah, more of that. But yeah, not even that level of opponent. It was first game back. It's hopefully he can get the legs literally under him some more. But offensively, he's still been that guy. And he's still been, most importantly, for all the defensive troubles of him and Dame, just a perfect offensive fit for the Dame and Giannis pairing.
Yeah, I think for me it was like we understand where Khris is at defensively.
Yeah.
He can maybe stop guys one-on-one on certain spots, but when he goes one way and the ball handler, if it's just like a one-on-one drive opportunity, more often than not, Khris might be left in the dust.
Yeah.
And it is unavoidable, but at the same time, we saw him hit fadeaway shots, relocate, hit a 3, even when he wasn't, I think he was 0 for 2 before that. Attempts, and the only kind of lob that can go to a guy like Giannis and draws the foul that way, and it was the right read. It wasn't like, it's not value lob attempt, but it was like, that's the right read. Just throw it high enough where only Giannis can get it, and anybody jumping up is going to foul him. And I just thought everything else, like, I can live with what we're seeing defensively if you're doing everything else and hitting shots and just being the ultimate complement to a guy like Giannis, this rim attacking, rim running force, and a guy like Dame who, yes, he hasn't shot the ball all that particularly well, or at least to his high standards, but can create his own gravity. And just Khris knows how to play off of that. That stuff is invaluable. And tonight, I think that's why I was really reassured and really excited by how they close out tonight, because we just saw Khris just like, oh, there he is. Oh, he's hitting a shot. Like, he just picks the right moments and the right spots. It's kind of surprising to me that he only had 2 assists because it felt like a lot more. But 0 turnovers, finishes with 17 points, 7 of 13 shooting. Yeah, I just thought that's what made me really excited, just to see Khris do vintage Khris things, and hopefully we see more of that as he, gets healthier, but also is just on this kind of razor thin wire of health post championship run, I guess.
Yeah. Another 60% 2-point shooting day from Khris, too, where the threes have really not fallen in mass. We're hoping to see that change at some point. I'm sure it will. But he has just been, cash money, to put it that way, from 2-point range, like pretty much all season. So great to see that. And to see, 23 and a half, almost 24 minutes isn't a ton, but, it would have really sucked if we saw him play 16 minutes in this game, right? Like, restarting now. Yes. We'll be back up to 28 by late February. Like, okay, at least we're picking back up after the brief absence there.
Yeah, the at the end of the third quarter where things was kind of like, oh, this feels like it's getting away, and you see the Heat hit threes and stuff like that. In our private chat, we were talking about just like I mentioned, like, this is the game just falls down in those Khris minutes of, like, first off is how many minutes is he playing, and then how well he plays, because it just that is how it's been the first, where are we at, game 18. It just kind of feels like that whenever he's available and able to play. So yeah, that is the interesting wrinkle with that particular journey that I've started to kind of come to grips with, as much as it's like this kind of can go really good or can kind of go really bad depending on the situation.
Absolutely. Ian in the chat points out Khris admitted in his post-game interview he didn't have it on defense tonight. I'm trying to see where the quotes are. I would love to read some quotes after the game, but either way, we will carry on. If someone has those, please drop them in the chat here or in Discord. Malik Beasley, who I'm always so torn on Beasley. I feel like he is kind of a lightning rod for a lot of reasons. Obviously, a guy who his shot falling on a particular night will define a pretty substantial portion of what he's able to provide. Had just a horrible defensive lapse where he just kind of forgot to move on defense, where he's probably good for about one of those a game usually, and they're ugly. Also, I thought he did some really good screen navigation in this game. Like it's an issue of polls with Beasley, who's like, you'll be, he's kind of figuring some things out. Oh, he forgot to go with his defender, and that's a dunk. But also in this game, 6 for 11 from the field, 4 of 8 from deep, 10 rebounds from Malik Beasley.
That's the number I'm looking at.
Yeah,
10 rebounds. Like I have had problems with not his play, but I just think you're starting a 6'4" 2 guard next to Dame. You're giving up a lot of height, and Malik Beasley, I know he's said that he's the Drew Holiday or the new Drew Holiday, whatever the quote was. But we know that he is not that. not to dismiss him, but it was like, that was always my thing of like, I didn't necessarily think of him as the starting 2 guard, but whether it's because of the Crowder injuries or obviously everything with Khris, like, I give him credit for like really maximizing his play. And I think the thing for me is that's really encouraging is that, yes, he's not a lights out defender. If like the Tyrese Halliburton play however many weeks ago of just kind of like your controller, shortening out, and he's just standing there like in a prone position and seeing Halliburton, blow by him. He's good for those at least once or twice a game, but also a lot of other Bucks players are too. But I just think for me, it's like, yes, I know he's a good shooter, and it's really good to see him kind of fight through that, classic, like, yeah, you're a good shooter, but the wheels are going to fall off that way. It hasn't so far. And he's really just competed defensively. Like, it does mean something that, like, yeah, he might not always be in front of his guy in some defensive possessions, but he's finishing on possessions, getting rebounds that the Bucks have really struggled with based on their defense and based on just energy and effort plays. Like, that rebounding, getting 10 rebounds really just says, hey, I'm going to finish off possessions. I'm going to track down the ball. Whether I'm in position or not, because he was tracking out to long misses and out of his area for a rebounded ball. And
he had a clutch one. I mean, the one over Lowry late in the game was like, oh, that's the kind of that's the sliding glass doors of like Lowry gets that, kicks it out to someone who runs and hits a fall away three, because the Heat hit a lot of open shots. They got hot and hit just everything for a while. That's like one of those like, oh, the whole game could have changed right there. And it was like he didn't just happen into it. Like he went up, got physical, body on body with Lowry, just going to move on, and went up and got the rebound and didn't get called for the foul. And I was like, that's a big play. That's the kind of play that it's not going to make highlight tapes. That's a big winning play.
Yes. That is the kind of play that will earn your coach's trust and have you out there for clutch time minutes. Because, I mean, at this point, he has to be out there by default based on the injuries that we have since added before the game, unfortunately. But, we have seen Malik's role diminish in games depending on, the situation or what has preceded, the first 43 minutes of the game. But if he's hitting shots and he's rebounding the ball, if he's doing things to kind of lift the team in other ways, like that is right for you to be in, getting more minutes and being in the most important situations that you'll be in this year. Yeah,
I mean, his complete line, 16 and 10, which is like a very Bobby Portis stat line, 16 points, 10 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal, 2 blocks. I'm having to read this like 5 times. Is this really? Yeah. No turnovers, 1 foul for Malik Beasley. The thing, I said this in the Discord chat. If you're not in, gspn.info to join our Discord. It's very active during Bucks games. It's a little heated, but the passion is there. I'll say that. He's a gamer. Like he really, as you said, like he wants to do these things. He's embracing a role where realistically, he knows he can't be Drew Holiday, but that the role of like, okay, they need someone to guard the perimeter, but with it's me, Khris, and Dame out here, like I've got to be the guy. He can't do it, obviously, anywhere close to that level. But I love that he's like trying to step up and do as much as he can. Like he's going to get clowned. He's already been clowned a lot for those quotes. They were probably not ideal things for him to say, but like, isn't that what you want out of a guy who like is kind of starting by default at this point of like, you need me to take a bunch of threes? Okay. You need me to defend the best perimeter player? Fine. Oh, we're not rebounding well? I'll go grab 10 rebounds. Like he's going to fall short. We know this. I think it says a lot about him that he's held on to this spot pretty firmly. Again, the boss man injury is a big factor in that, but the young guys have been inconsistent. Beasley has overall been quite good. There's going to be lapses every game, but I think he's improved a bit, and they're making it work with him.
Most minutes played tonight for him all season, by the way.
I think only Giannis played more among Bucks too. So a little surprising that he ends up 20 seconds or whatever more than Dame, but it was Giannis 39.5, Malik almost 38, Dame 37.5, and then just Brook at nearly 32 was the next closest. Then it's Khris and Bobby in the low 20s. Of course, Pat Connaughton with the unfortunate, looks like he twisted his ankle in the first half, somehow made the layup over the defender too. He stepped on the defender's foot. I have no idea how he did that with no lift at all. Pat, I want to talk more about the bench, and we'll do Buck stock markets after a quick break in a second here, but the shot fell a little more for him today. I have felt like he's done a lot of quiet good things, even when the shot has, and they need him to hit the shots. They just do with the injuries and just where this team is at. And he's not very good on the perimeter defending. I think he gets blown by a fair amount. But he's a really good rotator, and he rotates down below. And I remember looking up early in the year, like to see what Brooks' numbers were around the rim. And it's like Pat's numbers were really weirdly good, like what he's holding opponents to within 6 feet. And then I've been watching for that since. It's like, oh, he always slides in at the right time and contests the shot. And guys kind of struggle with it. Like he does a lot of the quieter things well. It's not enough to totally make up for not hitting shots and getting blown by. But if he can start hitting shots and just put up a little more fight when he gets back from however long this ankle thing holds him out, I think he's still very important to this team.
Yeah, I agree with you completely of like, we know the nights that he's not going to hit threes. Like he does, again, it's just picking your spots of like, he is a wing defender. He's going to be relied on to kind of lighten the load defensively, even if it's not the most ideal situation or the most ideal assignment for him. But we know of his ability to at least contest or alter shots, especially when he's testing his athletic leaping ability. But rebounding the ball, doing little things like his passing, you've seen the connection with him and Bobby. It was see him go down tonight was really just kind of like who we're thinking of guys like him being a connector and everything like that. And Khris is kind of the ultimate connector, even in this, especially in this new role. But it's like, how do you kind of move on or soldier on without a guy like Pat out there in the rotation where, we're talking about Marjan, we're talking about Andre Jackson Jr., we're talking about AJ Green, regrettably. And it's like, there's not a lot of guys on this team that can do the things that Pat does, even if it's in a more, not limited, but just it's a jack of all trades, master of none kind of way. And I really hope he's not out for long because
they need him. They really need him. Robin Lopez, big contribution tonight for the for the non-YouTube watchers. We got a jersey swap with what is the Heat's Bernie?
Bernie, yes.
Oh, Bernie with a U. I get it. Okay. I was gonna say Stuff the Magic Dragon because it kind of looked like Stuff, but I was like, no, that's the wrong Florida team. That is Orlando.
That's right. Yeah.
Don't sleep on Stuff the Magic Dragon. Are you using the Sleeper app for daily fantasy basketball? I am. Damian Lillard had been unusually cold from 3, but we all knew he was due to heat up, so we've been going higher on his points, plus rebounds and assists this week. If you think you know basketball, then you need to try to turn your basketball knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app, the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day into payday. Just download the Sleeper app and pick more or less on your favorite players. With more stats than any other daily fantasy app, just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick more or less from the predicted stats and you could win up to 100 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code EUROSTEP, GYROSTEP, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states, including Wisconsin. Check out Sleeper today. Okay, Jordan. Let us discuss the Bucks stock market, and we can use this as a way to go through the rest of the bench players. There may have not been a bunch of positives to talk about with the Bucks bench tonight, but we will cover the highs and the lows as we always do. So, starting off, we can burn through the starters. We talked about them a lot. I think we can probably be in agreement that Giannis and Dame are due for a couple of upstocks in this game.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
A couple total. I'm saying one each. Very good games from both, but I think
one each sounds kind of right.
Yeah. It sounds good. And then I think Khris, just a push due to the defense. I mean, is it good offensive game?
I would say yeah, or I would say up.
You would say up. You're generous in the Bucks stock market.
Maybe. But I do. I mean, 70 points, efficient shooting night, no turnovers, highest plus minus, even though that's an incredibly noisy set. I do think I would lean up, but I understand the push as well.
I will settle on the half up, the informal half up, that if he has another game that's relatively good, that maybe wouldn't be an up, we can give it to him. But I'm going to push back on the full up. If it was just a couple, but it felt like there were about 5 possessions in a row where Miami was just like, we're going to go just dribble past him. I just can't in good conscience give the upstock, Jordan. I'm sorry.
I understand. I put in a valiant effort.
No, you did. You did. I think as much as we liked his game and have liked him lately, probably also a push for Brook. I thought he played well, but without hitting any of the threes, and his impact was felt defensively, but he didn't really able to single-handedly stop what Miami was doing. Just think it was a good Brook game.
Yeah. Are you thinking up for Bees?
Yeah, I think up for Bees is fair.
I think 10 rebounds.
Good shooting game. I mean, again, there's it's the tale of the two different Beasleys on defense too. Like there was a couple ball screens that I thought, oh, he navigated that really well. He had the side contest. He forced some misses. And then there were some where we talked about it. I don't want to harp too much on it. So that's all the starters. Got 3 upstocks given for a close win, but still a win. A win is a win. The bench. We talked about Pat a little. I mean, just push. He's playing pretty well. Got hurt. That is what it is.
Yeah.
Big Bob. It was not a great Big Bob game. 3 for 8 for Bobby Portis, for anyone who may not be familiar with Big Bob after we got into hot water with Boss Man. Missed both of his threes. 2 rebounds, 2 fouls. So that's in nearly 23 minutes. He was almost team low, -12. But again, I don't want to harp too much on single game plus minus, but 6 points, 2 rebounds, 2 fouls for Big Bob. It's not a great game.
No, this isn't just not his matchup. I really grimaced when they were switching defensively down the stretch of the third quarter, and I'm like, Big Bob's on Duncan Robinson. This is not going to go well.
And it did not.
It did not go well. It didn't burn the Bucks as much as I thought it was going to be, but it was very much like KYP, know your personnel kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I would say down. It's been outside of the fourth quarter of the Portland game. He's Big Bobby. Has to kind of get through this little rough patch of his.
I agree, and I think part of the down here too is he actually has not gotten a down stock. His last movement was an up in game 14, so I think this is kind of both not a good game and a trend that has been negative.
Accumulation.
He has not had the same offensive impact on games, and defensively, I mean, I don't think he's been a pure disaster. I think he probably still gets a worse rep than he plays, but he hasn't been overly helpful either. So I think that's fair. He needs to, with all these guys out, especially with Pat leaving the game, he just has to be more impactful offensively. I mean, they can't afford the runner-up for 6th man last year, a guy we know is crucial to what this team does, to just kind of 3 total makes. That's your only offensive production the whole game. So I think that's a fair down stock. I think I don't know. I'll throw it to you first. The Bucks lost Cam Payne's 18 minutes by 15 points. Defensively, probably up there with Khris. It wasn't as many times, but some pretty bad moments. Did have 3 assists, made a 3 that got wiped off. I won't hold that against him. That was unfortunate. Yeah. Pretty big runner in the fourth quarter. Didn't think it was great by any means, but what do you think on Cam Payne's performance tonight? And just kind of overall, we haven't talked about him a bunch on the pod in a little bit now.
He's just kind of, I don't know. It's really kind of feels like if he doesn't have it going, Malik has it, and if Malik doesn't have it going, it's Cam. It's kind of, even though they do share the court a fair bit. Like, we've seen Cam more with Dame than Malik, and whether you agree with that pairing or not, I don't personally do. But, injuries kind of necessitate that right now. It does kind of sap some of his the use for him. Like, he's more off ball. He's can knock down shots. We see him still hit shots, even though they waved off the 3 for him today. The runner that you mentioned was big, but again, defensively, it's like, okay, it's got to get helter-skelter, and you hope for the best kind of thing, but I don't necessarily think I would go down, I would say.
Yeah, I'm really torn. I mean, I did not think it was a good game whatsoever. He also just is at, a bench player standing. The value is 11 right now. I would probably, counter to what we did with Khris earlier, call this the informal half down. I think another game around this production, and it would be another down stock for Cam Payne. I'm going to say he does hold on for this one, though, just by the little bit of shoe that was out of bounds. That's how close it is to a down stock for Cam Payne. Then all we have left to talk about for this game, and really overall, is the young wings. So MarJon got first crack out of this group. He wasn't the first bench player in, but played nearly 9 minutes. I think in about 5 minutes, picked up 4 fouls, including 2 in his first 3 or so seconds, which is not good. 0 for 2 from the field. Both were 2s. 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover. I think maybe the most disheartening thing, he just looked pretty lost defensively. Just did not make a good defensive impact on the game. I mean, I think the first game of the year gave some great minutes on Tyrese Maxey, and maybe he's just out of rhythm coming back from the ankle. I'm not sure. Just looked totally out of sorts in this game, which was disappointing. Probably to be expected from a player so green, but disappointing nonetheless.
Yeah, I can't really think of a MarJon game where we've seen anonymous MarJon games. We've seen like these kind of like just, he played, but there wasn't really much of substance there. He was a net negative for them in a major way today. And it started with the fouls. Then it was a fast court or a fast break. I think it was Dame that kind of hit him with, he was kind of like by the baseline and stuff like that. And he just flat out did not have the ball in his hands, didn't really clutch it at all.
That was tough. I forgot about that one too.
It was really just, everything was just like out of sorts for him in a very real way. And yeah, it is disheartening is the right word to say it, because it's like, we've seen flashes. I'm not expecting him to be a lights out shooter, but we want to see him kind of be that guy, the big defensive stopper. And outside of that opening game and maybe moments here and there, I'm sure there's more that will come to mind after I finish my point here. But tonight was just like, man, like he just doesn't have it. And it just felt, it was almost absurd how many fouls he got in that quick stretch. It felt like a summer league kind of, like, you have 4 fouls in 5 minutes. Like, how does that happen? That does not happen in an NBA game. So it was, that was crazy.
And there's been times too where I feel like we've kind of gone, that was ticky tack. Like that was just good defense. The first one, I mean, I don't think the Bucks were even back from commercial break. It was an away from the ball foul on an inbound. So that's just basically a tech, right? I mean, that's a free throw and ball. And then I think the second one was an and one on Lowry, if I remember right. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was either like 3 or 4 basically free points for Miami before, like really realistically, like as soon as play started with him in the game. And his tenure did not improve. It's a little harsh, but I would be willing to give the down stock here. I think it was that bad of a game.
I think so too.
Which is unfortunate in, just like 10 minutes, but it did stood out. It did stand out, I should say. It was a little glaring. And then let's do AJ Green first. I don't want to end with AJ Green. It's just sad. He just doesn't have the shot. It's abandoned him and I wonder if it's just the pressure of knowing that this is his big real NBA opportunity, like real close games. And, it really feels like if he knocked down a couple, there'd be minutes there for him. Certainly now with Pat and Crowder potentially out for a little bit. Hopefully not too long for Pat, but he certainly did sprain his ankle and then checked out of the game right away. So it's just tough. We gave him a down stock last game, so I think for missing 1 shot in 2 minutes, I wouldn't pile on, but I do wonder how long until he just runs out of chances if he cannot get in here and just catch fire and knock down a couple threes.
Yeah, 3 straight games we've seen him. 1 of 7 over the last 3 games. He's down to 30% from 3. If he doesn't hit it from 3, it's like he competes defensively. It's not like he's just doing nothing out there, but like he's just so limited. And I thought like there's the play where he's matched up on Duncan Robinson. They're setting up for this DHO with Robinson and Bam. And Robinson does that classic kind of like, to get him free of his defender, he kind of, chicken wings, but is a more extended shove. And AJ Green just kind of like flies into Bam Adebayo. And my cynical self was like, that is the best defense he has played probably of the season. It's really tough just to watch him out there. And
you were upset
It's not about AJ Green. It's more of like, it's about the next guy, because it's like, you have what you need right there if you want to go to it. And he's the superior player. He's shooting. Maybe he took AJ Green's shooting powers. I don't know.
If he did, because
he's hitting threes.
If he did, we just got to talk the Bucks into playing him more. I agree. I think probably my least favorite Adrian Griffin thing from this game was giving AJ Green the burn before Ajax, who now we'll talk about, saved the best for last. People in chat have been asking. Andre Jackson Jr., who played a grand total of 3 minutes, 20 seconds in this game. The Bucks ended up losing those minutes, but certainly was not his fault. I thought he played very well. Knocked down 2 threes. I think one was shooter's touch and one was a bank, maybe, if I remember right. I mean, they were sloppy, but it was like, I was just happy to see him take 2 threes in 3 minutes after one of his first possessions of the game. He gets in. It's the end of quarter situation. He gets an offensive rebound with about half a second left, where it's like, okay, just throw it back up there and see. And he passes it. And it's like, this is exactly why you went from starting a game to, 10th off the bench or 11th or whatever it was, 11th off the bench in this game. Like, the defense is necessary, and I think he's going to get more chances, and he's earned them. He's been a very good, impactful defender. You can't just not shoot ever, and that's where he was at. So it was nice to see him just take some shots. He also had an offensive rebound, which was the one I just mentioned, and that was it for his stats, just the 2 made threes. But good in position. He just adds energy. I would imagine he's going to get some more burn. He kind of has to. And I'm excited to see it. I mean, I think he's shown a lot of, even with my frustration, he's shown a lot of really enticing tools this season.
Yeah, I come away with, he may not have the most sterling performance, but there's 1 or 2 things that he does every game that I'm just like, there's something there. And normally it's the passing, it's the screening, just like impromptu screening. It's not like, it's freelance kind of thing, but just his shot looks a lot better. I'm not expecting him to shoot how much percent it is right now. I think it's pretty high up there.
It's got to be over 50 at this point. I'm waiting for stats to load. Oh, they are here now. Let's see what he's shooting from 3 this season. 60%. So yeah, I would not bank on that to carry on either.
But at the same time, his shot has drastically changed from what we saw in the summer league.
Yeah,
and the willingness to do it, whether that continues for how hot of shooting that he has. I just think he adds just something, and it's. Given the defensive woes and everything like that, and just needing another guy to kind of seamlessly switch, especially with the way that the Bucks play defensively, like I'm grasping for straws here. I'm just making that very clear. But there is a possession where Giannis is on Bam. Bam comes up to set the screen. I forget who it was. Giannis just switches off on the perimeter guy, and Andre Jackson Jr. switch off on Bam. And he's making it tough for him to not just like get to his spot. Like, and given the low bar that we have defensively, that is something. Is something.
It helps a lot.
I like to see guys compete defensively and everything like that. So yeah, I like Andre Jackson. That's basically my gush fest of this pod.
Well, I think it was the 2 of us after the draft, right? Where we really talked ourselves into him on that first pod, and now, it hasn't been perfect, but I think it's probably exceeded our expectations a little, maybe not totally, but the flashes have been enticing.
Very enticing.
Any other random notes from this game or recently that you'd like to hit here? I think that's good game for Ajax. I mean, just 3 minutes is not going to be an upstock, but that concludes Bucks stock market for this game. I would just say again, no movement for Adrian Griffin. It's been since game 11 that anything has changed. I just feel like there's been a decent amount of good, a decent amount of bad, which is kind of just life with really evaluating a head coach with so much that we don't see or know. So unless you had strong pushback
that doesn't stop people from talking, right?
It does not.
We're too late in the pod to actually have a serious discussion, but The results
what's your soapbox on this?
I have a soapbox, and it's I think he's doing okay.
Yeah.
I think he's doing okay. The Bucks are winning. They have things to figure out, and injuries have not helped them to kind of figure things out when we're talking about their defense not being what we've seen certainly of the last 5 years.
And yeah, I think injuries on top of, just ridiculously different personnel. And I've seen some people be like, does it really make that much of a difference just to lose Drew Holiday and Javon Carter? Yeah. Especially, they didn't go from them to like 5 average guys. It's
even Wes. Like, I know Wes was kind of like in and out of, at least during the regular season, he was not playing like heavy minutes, but that's another guy that, whether you're talking about a one-on-one stopper or just a guy that can kind of gum up in other ways, but like they're finding. Dan Devine wrote of Yahoo. He wrote kind of like a really interesting piece on the Bucks when they played the Nets a couple weeks ago, probably closer to a month ago now, and they viewed defense as being like a long-term project. And it was a really good article. It was of the non-Eric name, the non-local guys.
Yeah,
Seeing an outsider perspective about it, and it was like, oh, it's really refreshing to see the anecdotes that he got out of it, and just kind of like how they view the season of working their way up. And I personally had this feeling this whole time, but whether some people agree with that or not, I'm not saying it's been perfect or anything like that. It's not, but ultimately they're doing the things that we want them to do, and it's a lot easier to say that there are things to improve, but they can do that when they win too. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have one more point on this, and then we actually do have one more thing. Thank you, Edgar, in the chat. We have not talked about the in-season tournament coming up, so this is why it's good to go live on YouTube. So since they started dropping, so that if you want to filter this stuff yourself, you can use November 3rd as the date. So until now, the Bucks have played 14 games in that time. They are 11-3. Their offensive rating of 120.2 is 5th in the NBA. Their defensive rating of 114.5 did drop a bit after tonight's game, but 17th. So, certainly not what we're used to. It has not been since they made the defensive change, at least results-wise, a garbage defense. It's been bad, middling bad, but not garbage. I think they just need to get some of the defensive personnel healthy, and also probably just add a defender at the trade. As much as I don't want to do a whole big trade thing, like they probably just need to reorient the roster better. There was a shakeup with the Dame trade. It's not a very well-balanced roster. They could use some more perimeter juice, but the Bucks are 9th in net rating. So certainly the record is a little ahead of the skis net rating wise, but that's kind of going to happen when you're also the best clutch team in the NBA. And I think the only game they've lost that's went to clutch time with Dame was Celtics.
By Boston?
Yeah, which they didn't blow the lead. They just fought their way back in to make it such. So, I think that, clutch is always going to be a little loud, but I think it's somewhat sustainable for that to happen. But anyway, that's the Bucks and how they've played lately. The in-season tournament. So I've thought it's been awesome. And I was high in the in-season tournament coming in, and I think the intensity was clearly there. We saw the blowouts went up in this round of games because teams knew they had to make it in. There was clear excitement about this. I'm very excited for the knockout round. I was hoping the Bucks would make their way in. I can't wait to see. They host the Knicks, I believe, early next week or the week after.
It'll be Monday. So starting very soon. So less than a week from now. And just a quick refresher for anyone who doesn't know, the teams who don't make it will also play games this week. They're not just all off. Everyone will play the 82 games except the championship. There's an 83rd game that won't count for any stats. So all the other teams will be playing too. Teams that get knocked out will then continue playing as well. So everyone will be playing games, but the national TV games going forward for the next couple of weeks, once it gets going again, will be these knockout round games.
including the is it just the semis and finals in Vegas, I believe?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
So yeah, the first the round of 8 is just not going to take place. So that I believe is Milwaukee then, right?
Yep.
So Knicks at Bucks to see if we get a trip to Vegas. Dame wants to win it for the 2 ways, but what are your thoughts, Jordan, on the in-season tournament, the Adam Silver / David Stern Cup?
I like it. It's fun. It kind of reinvigorates the having the start of the season. You get really excited to see basketball be back, and then you kind of quickly get back into that pattern of things. And as much as like the Celtics game having that last week of like, oh, this is a big game, it's a big spectacle. It has felt like with some of these in-season tournament games, especially the Knicks game tonight, even without Jimmy Butler, it does kind of get like a shot in the arm of like, hey, you want to see them win. Obviously, you want to see them go for the ultimate prize, but like it does feel like they are doing this in the right way of pushing it. Even if I do think some courts are really, awful. But I do like the overall just kind of like just switching up. It's something to try, and I like how much they have embraced it. It doesn't feel half-assed by any means.
No, and I think the courts are ugly, but it was worth it just to then have that extra differentiator. So the teams that Milwaukee would have to play through to get to the final of this tournament, it's obviously the Knicks who they play first, and then the winner of Celtics Pacers will be their next opponent. So either way, going to get an East team that the Bucks would be looking for some revenge on, which is a fun thing in itself. But yeah, I think it's been really good. I have enjoyed it quite a bit, and I think you know that it worked, so to speak, because I mean, how many people and chatter was there, like in our Discord, on Twitter, on Threads, of like, oh, this team is up by 27 now. That's huge because now this team, they need to win by a lot. And if the Bucks lose, like the scenarios were everywhere. I saw some people pointed out correctly the NBA needs like a running standings that shows like the updated point differential. That would help with a lot. But still, people tracked it. And it was just like the games did feel more intense. They felt great. And it was cool to see the Bucks take it seriously and, go out there and go 4-0, even if some of the games were a little close, looking at Wizards and Heat mostly. It was still ended up being a great run, and hopefully it goes on for a few more games here.
Yeah, I think when it gets to the Vegas portion of it all and kind of really taking it to the next level, I know it's not going to be played in the Sphere, but when it goes to there, I think that's where we'll see kind of like, like this really take it off and kind of see what the vision has been.
I just think the money I think is great. I think NBA, everyone wants, and coaches and players want $500,000, but like you just tell them it's like a tournament and like there's going to be a winner. And these are pro athletes. They're competitive people. Like I think it's been obvious, like these teams want to make the cut. They want to play well. They want to win the tournament. So I think the questions of incentives and everything beforehand were really overblown. And I'm really excited, not even just for the Bucks part of it, that mostly, but like, I think there's going to be some really fun games. Both conferences going toward this final. So yeah, big fan of the in-season tournament. Hope to see it evolve and grow and maybe less ugly courts. But hey, it was distinctive, and hopefully we get the cool NBA Finals court back after they put the in-season trophy on these ones.
I would like that. I would like that very much.
I would too. Okay, Jordan, now that thankfully, thanks to Edgar, we didn't forget to mention the in-season tournament part of it all. Anything else that we should cover before we wrap this one up?
No, I think we're good. I think Bucks won.
Yeah.
They won the group. They will have a chance to not exact the revenge, but continually to beat the Knicks. I think it was a good win. It was much to be celebrated. Some things clearly need to be worked out, but again, this applies to a lot of the Bucks seasons so far.
Yeah, it does. It's a work in progress. They're managing to still win games. Obviously, the defense has to get better. Probably just need better defensive personnel. But in the meantime, while the cavalry is still on the way, both in terms of Crowder and potential trade, hopefully some more Andre Jackson, hopefully Marjan can iron it out, and just, guys fight a little harder, be a little sprier. Who knows? We'll see. But that is all from us on this episode. Thank you to everyone who watched live on YouTube. As always, please, if you are not already, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you know if we go live. And we're also on audio platforms, so check us out there as well. You can find all the links to everything at gspn.info. Make sure to rate and review 5 stars if you are listening on audio. I saw we're pretty close to, I think, 200 5 stars on Spotify. So definitely if you're a Spotify user, mobilize. And then make sure to check out the rest of the podcast on GSPN. Talk of the Tundra. They let Jordan cook this week. Solo pod. I was listening today, a little late, but quite a fun pod, recapping the Packers' big Turkey Day win. And go like, rate, and review. Talk of the Tundra, cruising for a bruising. Make time for this, but all the pods, we really do appreciate it. Join the Discord. And I think that's everything. I'm gonna let I guess everyone else cook. I had a good outro and I flubbed it. Pod random. We'll talk to you next time.